Welcome back everyone. We're going to continue with our RS6 modeling course. What we'll continue doing is finishing up the work on the rims. Now let's make sure that we have screencast keys turned on. So last part of our rims that we'll finish up is just these loops right here. We just need to insert these. So I'm going to select these loops. I just remember screencast keys need to be turned on. So now that we've got those selected, we're then going to extrude. Basically extrude inwards, and then we can add loop cuts to these areas, basically to refine it out. You want to make sure that these loop cuts, they're close but not entirely. Like, you want to make sure that they're close but just not entirely, not too close to the other vertices. This way it looks super sharp, it looks well done. Now I recommend doing the same thing to the wheels at the rear. Now I'd like to add my brake disc. Let's add a circle. Let's change the align to view and let's turn down the vertices, I'd say around 16. That's pretty good. Let's tab in. S to scale down. Excellent. Scale it up a little bit and probably move it back just a bit. Scale it up a little bit more. And F to fill. We're then going to insert these faces. And then we're going to add some additional loops around this area. I'd say about 3. That's pretty good. Now individually with these, what we can then do is to bezel, Control B, and I to insert, but only a small amount, and E to extrude backwards. This is going to give our brake caliper some pretty cool details. Command 2 to subdivide. I just realized our screencast key, the fonts is very small, so we're going to increase the size, I'd say to around 60. Let's add shadow as well. We could even add a background if we wanted to, but it's not absolutely necessary. I'll keep it for now. Now next thing is to select the outer edge loop of our brake caliper and extrude. And what we're going to do is fill and insert once more, and then extrude again, extrude once more, and then press S to scale it. Let's look at this from the side. That's pretty good. And then E to extrude once again, I to insert, and that's our basic brake caliper. We can even add another loop just to make sure that everything is edged off. Add some loops around there as well. Let's make sure everything is refined. That's pretty good. But how about this face right there? How about this one? Do we need to insert and extrude that one again? Of course, because this is like where the wheels attach. I know it looks a little bit rough, but that's all you need. That right there is all you need for now. Now the brake calipers can be a little bit more interesting, but I'll keep it simple. What we'll do is that we will add a cube. Let's tab in, scale this cube down, and scale it on the y-axis. Our brake caliper. Scale it up on the z-axis. Perfect. So we've got a plane there, of course. So what we can then do is basically to add a couple of loop cuts, and let's scale these. And individually, we're just going to move them in either direction. This way, we can basically extrude this face. Well, for one, we can actually just press G and X and move it out just a little bit. Make sure it's not interlocking too much. It is interlocking quite a bit, so I'm just going to select all and scale it down just a little bit. And let's just move it back just a little bit. Excellent. Now, excellent. Now this face, we are going to insert and extrude once more, and then we're just going to insert. So it's just mostly just a basic brake caliper, and due to that we're going to need to scale these edges down, scale these edges as well. Perfect. And we are going to select those vertices and carry them back just a little bit, or actually just a face. We can actually just extrude the face and then scale it down on the z-axis. Perfect. We're going to add a loop cut right there, or actually we can just select these vertices right here, move them across just a little bit, and these faces we can probably just extrude those inwards just a little bit. Can add a couple of loop cuts around these areas. Actually, something was not done correctly, right? I had the wrong face selected. Imagine that. Okay, let's try again. Extrude this way on the x-axis, of course. Add a loop right there. Add another one right there. We're going to delete these faces, and then we are going to join these faces. Next thing we can do is actually just move these one up quite a bit. Move those down as well. Honestly, this part is not entirely important. We're going to delete this face. But yeah, these parts, not entirely important. We'll just move these up. But it's mostly for aesthetics, I would say. That's these parts are mostly for aesthetics. Then we can press Option H, get back those. And you might want to name. You might want to name a lot of these things. You don't have to, but you might want to. Now with this face, scale it down a little bit more, move it in a little bit more, smooth it in a little bit more so it's less affected. Perfect. If we wanted to, we can add a subdivision, and then we can basically just add some loop cuts to basically sharpen this up. Again, this is not entirely imperative. You don't have to do this, but it's an option. Sharpen up these areas quite a bit. Might need to bring this face out a little bit more. So this is like our basic makeshift brake caliper. We can either add another loop in there, and even these ones we can adjust these a little bit like that. Probably need to adjust them a little bit more. And that's our basic brake caliper. We can add a mirror modifier naturally on the y-axis, of course, and target them to the rear wheels. Where's our cube? Yes, we need to target these to our cube. Actually, with these brake discs, let's just target them on the X. Same thing with the brake calipers. Target these on the X to our cube. Now, there's a lot more details that go into designing the vehicle. It all depends on how far you want to take it. But we're trying to get as much of it done as possible. Now with these, we're going to duplicate those, carry them towards the rear. Might want to zoom in and make sure this is lined up as best as possible. So it might just keep the original design, at least for now. And we could redesign it in the future if we decided to. Now let's think about designing the rear of the vehicle. So we want to duplicate this area. So we want to duplicate these vertices, and we can press P to separate. We got to think about this from all angles, and it's best to, times like this, it's best to use some reference images. So I'm taking an extensive look at the rear end of the RS6. Try to understand the complexities that we will be designing. Try to take in the different shapes, you know. There's this area, of course, there's these areas, and everything is mirrored, of course. There's a light right in the center right there. There's lights right there. So while we're designing this, we kind of have to think about these. We have to think about a few things. One thing that I will do is get rid of any unnecessary vertices that I might have just lingering about. Perhaps this one, perhaps those. Get rid of some of these that are just unnecessary. Try to look at this from the side once again, but what I will do is can think about extruding, probably just a small amount at first at least. You can see that these areas need to be extruded quite a bit more. So we can move those towards that area, move those back a little bit, and of course then they need to fold down, kind of like that. Some of these ones as well, they need to be brought in just a little bit, especially those ones. And that's looking a little bit better so far, except for this area. This one, question is, what will we do with this one? Looks like it might need to be brought back just a little bit. Bring these back just a little bit also. So there's a lot of that, just readjusting until you get it right. These ones almost need to be completely flat. There I say almost. So we're going to bring those ones back a little bit like that. we're going to add a vertex right there, and we're going to carry those out just a little bit. Now that one is a little bit interesting. Now this one is a little bit interesting because from the top you can see it just doesn't look 100% correct. But also this area might need to be brought out a little bit, but got to keep in mind how best to get that done. Or maybe it's just around there, just needs a little bit more readjusting. Could be something like that. But here's what we will keep in mind is that there needs to be a vertex right there. This group can probably be deleted for now. This vertex needs to be moved across there just a little bit. So that is interesting. Like this group needs to be almost like this. And then possibly dissolve these vertices. Join those and link that one. Just does not feel fully correct. How interesting. It's almost as if we might need to separate these areas. So like these, we can join those, can move those across. We'll also join these ones, we'll join those, and then we will just separate this area. We'll also move this up, move this one aside, going to carry this one down. This one, we're going to carry this down around there. We're going to flatten this out. Then we're going to join those. Might do that also. So this is an option. Very brief option actually. Let's carry this one over there. Might need another one right there. Might need another one right there. And might need another one right there. Something like that, which is looking a little better. Something like that, you know, it's looking a lot better actually. I wonder if we'll need this. We might need that eventually. We might, because yeah. And we might need it around now actually. Might need to bring this back kind of like that. And as for this area, looks like it goes all the way down. May need to carry this in kind of like that. Or perhaps, okay, starting to make a little bit more sense. When we extrude this, as we do need to extrude it, we'll move this up. By the way, all of these need to be moved up. And then these ones, these vertices, can select those and carry them across, kind of like that. But to be honest, this entire thing needs to be adjusted a little bit like that. That's looking a little bit better. So when we add a loop cut around there, that's what it looks like. Although this area might be a little bit unnecessary. But first, let's extrude this inwards. I wonder if we need to carry these ones back up. Probably do. We'll try with that for a moment. Try and level this out. Okay, it's not too bad. Let's see. And carry this in just a little bit. That's another thing. These areas, they need to carry them in quite a bit. So you can see there's quite a gap right there. There's quite a difference. Like somewhere around there. We'll also add another vertex right there. Also with this too, carry those back. And we'll carry these vertices down just a little bit, just to close up that gap. How about these ones? May have to close up these ones also. And that's a good thing, by the way, you know. That is a good thing. Closing up these gaps, that's a good thing. Carry these to the rear just a little bit. And then we need to consider what we're going to do next about filling this area. That's interesting. One, we got to make sure that this is not too far in. And then what I'll do is actually, I will take these and I'll just duplicate those. I'll just duplicate these and I'll just fill. I'll just continue to fill these, and from here on out, can probably just do the same. But I'm going to duplicate those as well and fill those. Wonderful. Probably dissolve those and carry those across. I wonder if we need that, if that's actually necessary. And then we can just continue filling these. We'll see if this works. If it doesn't work, then we need to rethink it just a little bit. And let's extrude this also and get those filled. Okay, that's interesting. May need to add another group right there. We might add another group right there also. That might be a little bit more complicated to get that detail as we want. Just do some readjustments there. Probably do some readjustments around here as well. And then these ones, we just extrude this in, scale it down a little bit. That's looking very, very interesting. And you can see some of this, we just need to bring it back. Like these areas. This needs to be brought back. These areas also. Awesome. That's looking a little bit better, to be honest. It's looking real refined. Then if we wanted to, we could simply just extrude, probably scale this on individual points and just carry this in just a little bit, scale in a little bit more, probably extrude upwards. That's an option. Also, we don't have to 100% keep that, but for now that's what we're working with. Now what's really awesome is creating the actual exhaust pipes, these things. Those are quite aggressive. Now this area, I'm a little bit more curious about it. You can see based on the design, this is all one thing, but in order to simplify it, we can basically split it up. But this area I'm a little bit more curious about. We know it's inserted quite a bit, and we know these faces are almost inserted and then extruded, not like that. I'm just trying something random here just to see if this works. If this doesn't work, then we can always redo it. So that's interesting, but it doesn't look good. You got to admit, that does not look good. So we'll undo that. Pay closer attention to this area. You can see right there, these are clearly extruded. That's inserted. These faces are extruded. Audi really gave us a challenge on this one, which is good because we can always learn something new. I'm curious as I just saw something. Just wondering if this can work. And let's scale this. Let's just straighten that up. Probably the entire thing. Wonderful. And I'll just add a loop right there. Add one right there. And join these. Curious if I can just get rid of those. To be honest, I might keep just one. Get rid of that one. This is where our challenge lies. We'll have to join those and then get rid of that one. Actually, not quite. Hold on. We'll keep that side and just get rid of this side. Still not working. So just this face is not wanting to... What if we did that? That's close, but now this face is causing us problem. I'm curious if we join those and get rid of this one. Dissolve that edge. Still doesn't want to cooperate. Perhaps that's the reason why. Now that's a challenge. Now, to be honest, you don't have to do this. This is more of a preference rather than something you have to do. But I'm just curious if it will work. Or should I just rejoin these? That is the one part that I don't particularly like entirely. And I wonder if we need to carry this out. I mean, actually, that doesn't look too bad, if I'm being completely honest. But that's not what we wanted initially. But I'm still curious about this area. Oh, those are aero. I see. Those are actually like aero devices. Like those are to help with downforce at the... So you can actually see those are aero slots. So those are where air goes into to help push the car further down to the floor. Okay, so I think we can work something out. Let's see. First thing we'll do is to extrude this area and extrude once again. We need to enable clipping on our mirror modifier. Let's see if that works. Kind of works. Now with these faces, same thing, but we're going to insert and then extrude towards the rear. Let's see how that looks. Not bad. Let's add a vertice around this area. Let's take those vertices and scale them out just a little bit. And this face, we're going to delete that face actually. Also going to delete that face. With this single line of vertice, we need to flatten this, for now at least. Delete these faces also, although might create a bit of a problem for us. We might just do this. We might just merge that at the center. Might just merge this at first. Same thing with this one. Merge at first. And then for now, delete that face as well. That's not too bad, but I think they're a little bit further out. I'm going to move this towards the rear. Same thing with this one. We're going to move this towards the rear also just a little bit. Perfect. And underneath, it's very flat. But you can also see that we might need a loop cut around this area. I think it's somewhere around there. Yep, somewhere around there. The reason for this is because these vertices taken in kind of like that, and these ones are sharpened up kind of like this. Then this loop, we can actually move that one closer. Then we can move this one towards the rear kind of like that. May need to move it up a little bit, and then move these one in. Probably dissolve this one for now. Probably dissolve that one for now also. We'll move these one back also. Then what we can do is just extrude upwards just a little bit and extrude forward just a little bit more. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. Wonder if we need to just have one. Yep, that's not too bad. And move this one towards the rear. Perfect. Let's fill that face. We'll extrude that way. We'll extrude this way. We'll also fill this area. That's perfect. And we'll add another vertex right around there. Now, as we remember, there's a light unit within there. Yep, there's a nice little light unit within there. So some of these faces, what we're basically going to do, may need one right there, but a lot of these faces, what we're basically going to do is to separate. P to separate. And add some additional loops around this area. And then we're just going to extrude inwards. Add some loops around these areas. That's pretty damn good. And extrude inwards, scale down. And that's about it. But with this area, we're just going to push this out just a little bit, just to give it that prominence. How about our aero devices? Good questions. They're around there. So we know we need some more loop cuts in and around these areas. We also know, I wonder if that distance is good enough. That's what I'm wondering, if that distance is good enough. So add in some more loop cuts. Okay, and another thing, this area, we're just going to move this out. Probably a little bit more. Perhaps this area also. Perhaps like that. We'll move this towards the rear also. And I wonder if we need to do the same thing with these vertices. Yep, I wonder if we need to move this one towards the rear also. Wonderful. Now I wonder if we can then begin to connect these arrow faces. We might have to select these faces, duplicate, bring those one back. It's one thing I don't like, and that's the fact that it looks a little bit off. Like this entire area just looks a little bit off, like it needs to go back in. Or do we need to just bring these out a little bit more as well? Hard to say. We're going to save this increment and try to go back to our last increment that was saved. We don't want to go back that far back, so we're just going to work with what we have. But this area right here definitely feels like it needs to be brought back in. Kind of like that. We might do it with these as well. Perfect. These faces we're going to separate. We're going to carry this back just a little bit. Then we're going to extrude. That's brilliant. And like I said, these are aero devices. So we need to flatten them out, of course. A little bit like pancakes. Kind of like that. I wonder why it's a little bit off. Just to make them make sense. That's a little bit better. Now with these aero devices, you could connect them. You don't have to, but you could connect them. And that of course would take a bit more time, but that's if you want even more detail. But to be honest, that's looking a lot better. Bringing everything back into our viewport. And our viewport is slowing down a little bit. I am not entirely sure why, and to be honest, I don't like it. It's slowing down too much for my liking. And I have a suspicion that it's probably these rims that we designed. That's a little bit better. Yeah, our viewport is slowing down quite a bit, and that just makes me suspicious that, you know, some parts of the designs we just have too much vertices. When the vertices becomes too much, I find that the viewport does slow down quite a bit. And even now it's still a little bit slow. And I wonder if it's to do with these also. So viewport slowing down due to the vertices. But it can't just be the vertices. That's a little bit better. You can see now it's a little bit more, it's a little bit better, but the frame rate is still low. Yeah, frame rate is still low. But overall, it's looking brilliant. So those aero devices at the rear, we could connect those a little bit later. That's up to us. For now, we can work on our exhaust. So we can create our exhaust kind of like that. Delete those areas, merge these areas, dissolve those vertices. So they'll look a little something like this, if I'm being completely honest. Our exhaust will look a little something like that. Maybe a little bit smaller actually. Yeah, maybe a little bit smaller. A little bit wider, a little bit flatter. Something like that. And I think it needs to be brought in a lot more. But I wonder. They're a little bit slanted, but not as much as these ones, I don't believe. They're a little bit slanted, but not as much as those ones. So can we extrude this towards the rear? So it looks a little something like this. We're going to extrude again, scale inwards, and extrude again, and scale inwards. These ones, we're going to carry those back quite a bit. But with these ones, we're going to scale that down quite a bit. A little something like that. And probably move this up just a little bit. And then we're just going to select it and move it back. Not too far back, but yeah, somewhere around there. Okay, that's looking a lot better. We've done some good work, especially on the rear of the vehicle. Oh, and that's another thing. Extrude this area and scale that within, and then move it forward just a little bit. That's another thing as well. And with this area, we might just flatten this a little bit. We are getting close to completion. Let's turn on our screencast keys and let's continue modeling our vehicle. So we have some work to do on the front of the vehicle, which might be quite delicate. So I'm just going to hide a few of these objects, at least for now. So we want to work a little bit on the front of the vehicle, of course. So let's see what we can do. We want to design this fin and of course the grills. The grills might be a little bit challenging, but we're willing to face it. So we know that there's a fin around this general area. And here's what we'll do. We'll actually use some existing faces. We will separate these. That's good. And we can extrude. We can extrude inwards. Take a look at our... Actually, before we extrude, we might need to reposition this. So that's our fin. Of course, we need to level this one out. We'll level these vertices out as well. Let's level those as well. Let's level these one out and level these one also. We'll then extend on the x-axis and the z-axis. And it's clear we need to reposition this and probably carry this towards the rear a little bit. It will need some additional expanding, of course, on both sides. That's looking a little bit better. Let's view this from the side profile and let's flatten this, at least for now. So when we do extrude, it would look a little something like that. And we know that because it's fins, they probably need to be at an angle. So it's very sharp at the front. As you can see, it looks like there might be some aero ducts on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side, depending on the side you're using to design. But it's very slim. It is fairly slim. Now, as I suspected, it is quite protruded, of course, and at the top it is slanted downwards, and the bottom is almost like the bottom is, it's planted into this unit. Now, believe it or not, I want to avoid that. So I can slant the top as well and think about sharpening it up, sort of like that. But due to how this thing is designed, might need to carry this down, Might need to carry down this vertex also. And we might need another vertex right there. Move this towards the rear. And with these, we'll push this towards the corner so it closes out. And we might have to readjust all of this ever so slightly. We'll continue to readjust it until it's like at a satisfying result, you know. I'll continue to adjust all of these until I feel like I'm happy with this. That's looking somewhat better, but the problem is now these ones might also need a bit of adjusting so that it appears somewhat straight. Now I am deviating from the actual design ever so slightly, but that's your choice. You don't have to deviate. I'm choosing to deviate a little bit from the actual design. I'm going to carry in another vertex and I'm going to shift this one up. Actually, let's flatten all of these. Let's move these up ever so slightly. And we might need to adjust this a little bit more. So now it's looking a lot sharper, of course. Might need to move this one up and shift this one out just a little bit. In fact, with this entire thing, we might have to adjust that quite a bit. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of adjusting, especially to get this right. Now, like I said, there is the aero duct right there, but I am deviating from the design a little bit. And now essentially we can start thinking about the grills. So let's think about it. So let's add a circle. Let's change the align to view. Let's drop the vertex. Need to drop the vertex quite a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just counting the faces. Drop the vertex by 6. Tab in and scale down. Scale it down the entire way. Move this up. Scale it down and move it around there. And then we're going to scale it out. Truth to be told, I think these are somewhat flat. And then there's like vertices right there. And those are the ones that are moved out quite a bit. So it's a little something like that. That's roughly what we're dealing with when it comes to the grills. We might also have to rotate this a little bit. Even on the vehicle, you can see it's rotated. So again, deviating from the original car design, going a little bit off script. I'm going to fill these faces and I'm just going to continue doing this. Sort of like doing this the manual way. And if you're doing this the manual way, you got to make sure that the vertices, you got to make sure that the distance, that they make sense. So that's something really important. So that's good. That's the first step. And then we can duplicate this, carry it across. So with this right here, what we'll do is then we'll extrude, not too much, but not too little. And then with the entire thing, we can duplicate. Carry this down, but not too much. And then fill face. Same thing again, duplicate. And the only thing you have to make sure here is that the distance makes sense. You don't want these being too far apart, but also perhaps not too close. So we're just going to continue doing this until we fill these gaps. So that's one of the first steps. We'll also duplicate this one as well and fill these gaps. Excellent. Then we can duplicate the entire thing. And if you want individually, you can merge these. But again, you don't have to. I recommend saving the document actually before doing that. And you can actually bring them a lot closer together before merging these vertices. But we're just trying something here, you know, we're just experimenting. Just noticed that actually. Got to make sure that they're more than just a line. They have to be next to each other. So we can't afford to be short-sighted. So if we view this from the top, then we're able to carry these next to each other, kind of like that. And then we save, just in case we lose this document, and then we merge. So just get all of these merged and we'll take it from there. Excellent. Then we can duplicate once again, and then we can delete those right there. Probably delete these vertices also. And once again, continue to merge these vertices. Excellent. So that's looking a lot better. Actually, no. We made a mistake once again. They're not leveled. So once again, you want to make sure that these are at least leveled. That's quite important. And just to be cautious that, we're going to get rid of some of these in a moment, but we want to keep in mind that some of them will stand out, but we're going to continue to merge, even though those ones are a little bit unnecessary, because we're going to get rid of some of these in a moment. But this is the blueprint, of our grills. So we can actually just duplicate these and use them for the other designs we got going on, which might be a little bit different, but we'll see. So with these ones right here, clearly we need to readjust a little bit and carry this inwards a little bit. We want it to level out with the ground right around there, something like that. Yep, something like that. And we're actually going to mirror this. You can apply locations as well to this to get it to the other side. And then we can think about extruding. That's pretty good. Then we can think about the subdivision. Even before you do all of that, if you wanted to, you could save another file. And then of course extrude. You can probably delete these faces at the rear. Then we can add a subdivision. With all of these lines, we can probably then add a bezel. A bezel modifier would be wise. So we can press Command B, add a bezel modifier. It can quickly get messy if we're not careful. So we'll be sure that this bezel modifier is not too much. But the question is also how many segments and at what distance also. Now once we do that, the viewport starts slowing down, so we're going to have to undo that. Always got to keep in mind that viewport will slow down sometimes if we're not careful. So we might need just one segment and keep it simple. So that's an option, and our viewport is not slowed down. You can see it's definitely not perfect. But I wonder, another option for this, if we got rid of the bezel, and in fact we got rid of the subdivision, what if we just shade smooth? Either way, it needs those bezels. But I'd say we can keep the bezels super minimal. Now that does look a lot better. And the viewport is not slowed down. Might be a little bit laggy, but it's not slowed down too much. Then what we can do is simply delete a lot of these. You can delete a lot of these vertices that are completely unnecessary. In doing so, I also hope that, well, actually don't like how that looks, so I might have to leave that part. Some of these parts, it'd be best to leave them. Some of them, not all. Like that, can definitely get rid of that, but we'll leave that one. Some of these ground units, we'll get rid of those as well. And this will actually help the viewport, because you can see the viewport is a lot more responsive. Something else that I also noticed was there's a little sensor right there. There's a little sensor right there. And behind it, not sure what that is, but it's fairly simple, fairly straightforward. That could just be a plane extruded back, keep it simple. And behind that, I think it's like radiators. So with that being said, let's add a circle. 16 vertices should do. To view, tab in, scale down. Move it around here. That sensor was roughly somewhere around there, or just around there. So I'd say it's probably around here somewhere. Now that I look at this, I'm wondering if we need to readjust this. So this is roughly where the sensor is. We'll carry this out and we'll adjust it like that. Adjust it a little bit more. That's better. And we will extrude forward and we will fill. Now with the rear, I think we can then extrude, or we could possibly just leave it like that for now and simply just add a bezel right around there. Probably need to increase the size of that, hopefully not too much. We'll insert this face and we will bezel this. We'll also insert once again, and we will move this back. We'll also add another one right there. That's looking a little bit better, a lot better, a little bit more official. Although from this angle, it's looking like it needs to be a bit more flat like that. But from this angle, then it looks weird. So just keep it like that for now. We will add a new plane, tab in, scale this down, rotate it on the x-axis 90 degrees, scale it down a lot more, and move this forward. Move it towards the left hand side a little bit and just rotate this. Move it back, rotate it a little bit more. That's perfect. Then we're going to move this up. That's excellent. That's pretty good. And we're going to extrude it towards the rear. Move it back a little bit more and delete face. Then with this we can shade smooth. Well, add a subdivision and then shade smooth. Probably add a subdivision level of 3. Then we can add some cuts. We can tab in, and let's not forget we need to rotate this. Not too much, but just a little bit. Move it forward. That's about it. And of course, let's add our mirror modifier. Control A, apply locations. Same thing with our little sensor. Control A, apply locations, and add our mirror modifier to that. That's good. So we got radiator and stuff going on towards the rear. But before that, we need to continue with this. Let's set the origin to geometry. Then we can rotate, view this from the top. So we want it to be a little bit flat. Rotate a bit more. That's pretty good. Tab in, move towards the back just a little bit like that. And then we need to move this towards the left hand side a little bit. Now I wonder if we need to delete these also, and delete those. Let's extend this a little bit. Let's also extend this towards the top a little bit. Let's extend this down a little bit. That's a bit better. Or we can just delete that and extrude once again. Try to extrude equally on all sides. Now what I'm wondering is, when we duplicate this, I want to merge, but with a little bit more precision. So we're going to add some extra vertices around here. So essentially we can fill those face and fill this face also. And then possibly flatten this out. If that doesn't work, then just these ones. Ah, that's better. Yep, that's a lot better. So since we're working with the right hand side, we will continue with that. This is our rear light unit, I believe. Yep, that's our rear light unit. We'll just hide that for a moment. So we're working on the right hand side, so we'll move this to the right hand side. Now the unique thing about this car is that it's slightly tilted. So everything is slightly tilted to that side. Let's set the origin to geometry. So everything is slightly tilted to the center, but it's very subtle. So we'll duplicate this group once again, and we will add some vertices, loop cuts I should say, around this area. That's pretty good. Once again, duplicate, add some loop cuts around these areas, and then fill, of course. And of course, flatten this out. This is the one thing that I did forget. From the top, you got to line these up. So we'll just adjust it, carry these forward, of course. Look at that from the front, see how it looks. A little bit scruffy. Not entirely happy with it, you know? Which is why I'm going to level this. Carry it forward, not too much, that is. Carry it down a little bit. And then what we're going to do is slowly adjust these. Rotate them a little bit and carry this towards the rear. Same thing with these ones. We'll rotate it a little bit and carry that towards the rear. Same thing with this one. We'll rotate this a little bit and carry this towards the rear. Now that already looks a little bit better, although I can probably carry this one out a little bit more. So undo that for a moment, and just a little bit. Doesn't need to go in all the way. Yeah, don't want it to be too That could work. And then what we can do is duplicate this once again. And we're going to overlay these vertices. Actually, before we duplicate, let's just add a couple of loop cuts right there. We're going to need them. Duplicate it now and overlay them with the current vertices. And this group right here, we'll duplicate this. We'll carry this across, kind of like that. That's pretty good. And add a couple more lines right there. Fill those, and then level them out. This one is poking out just a little bit. We can probably bring that back if we wanted to. We don't have to, but manual adjustments are important. And of course, I completely didn't remember to carry this towards the rear. And rotate this and carry this towards the rear once again. And as for these ones, carry them towards the rear, rotate them and carry them towards the rear. We'll also carry this one back also. So some of these are just going to be hidden, kind of like those, and that's a little bit better. In fact, with this group of vertices, we can even carry this up just a little bit, sort of giving special attention to areas that need it. And once again, carry those towards the rear. We will merge each and every one of these vertices with the X-ray turn on, of course. And then we're going to duplicate these again. Actually, let's carry these down a little bit. Let's add our two lines right there, and let's duplicate these as well. Now with these, we'll fill, and we want to level these out. With these ones, I have a feeling we might need to carry these out kind of like that. And as for this area, I have a feeling this is for when we extrude, but we're going to extrude towards the rear. But we're not going to do that just yet. As for now, it's just these that need adjusting. So we'll add another vertex right there. And we'll carry these, actually the entire thing. The entire thing needs to be rotated, carried towards the rear, kind of like that. Which is starting to make it seem like this is unnecessary. We'll delete that again. Let's take a look for ourselves. Well, that's better. Duplicate these and carry them down. And as for these ones, we'll overlap them once again, a little bit better of course, and we'll carry them across around there. With these, we'll merge by center, so that's pretty good. With these ones, same thing, overlap those with the current vertices. With these ones, we'll carry those towards the center once again, carry these out a little bit, and once again merge these vertices. But it's one step that I did forget just a little bit. That is the fact that these ones, they need to be protruded. So that's actually going to be quite interesting also. So we'll just continue to merge these for now, and then we're going to position this. We're going to reposition it, which we can probably do towards the end actually. Now that I think about it, we can probably do that towards the end. You can see gaps like this need to be extruded even more, like extruded towards the rear even more, kind of like that. And that looks a lot better. Looks a hell of a lot better actually. But anyway, getting back to this. So once again, we need to duplicate these and merge these vertices, overlay them, but merge these vertices. Same thing once again, duplicate them, overlap them, and merge. So I'm going to do the exact same thing all the way down until we get further down to the ground unit. Overlap them once again and merge. Now there are easier ways to do this, especially with the array modifier, but right now I want to avoid the array modifier because I want to have as much control manually of this as possible. Now once again, we're going to duplicate and we're going to merge. And we're going to select all of these and we're going to extend. Before you do that, you can also save in increments, just in case we mess this up. We always got something to come back to, but that'll probably do. What I'm thinking is using the proportional editing. Using proportional editing, got the proportion editing turned on, so we can then basically do something like this, but probably not that dramatic. If we can't do this with proportional editing, then I'm more than happy to basically find some other means. But you can see proportional editing kind of like that, but without it end up looking like a potato. So it's best to view this from the side to really see how it's affected. You know what we're going to do? Having proportional editing turned on, I just made me realize not everything is supposed to be selected. How could I not have seen that previously? Of course, not every part is supposed to be selected, but it still affects everything that I select, which is really annoying. I wonder if we use pivot point, if that could help. So if we use that as the active point, not working so well. What if we use that as active point? Okay, that's a little bit more promising. Now that's a little bit better. So finally we're getting somewhere. So clearly active point is the way to go, but the vertices at the top are being affected. So that's really annoying. Vertices at the top are being affected, but perhaps we can manually redo that. But before we commit to this and mess it up, just save in increments, and then we can give this a go. So like I said, if we do mess it up, we always got something to go back to. So how is that one looking? Actually, just made me realize something. So obviously you need to have this at the right distance. The scroll wheel, you need to have that at the right distance. But it's not just that. You cannot select too much of this. That's an important part. You cannot select too much of this. Sort of have to select the right amount. And even that's not too bad, but even that looks a little bit suspicious. So I wonder if we only select one vertex and another vertex for our active point, how would that work? Okay, how interesting. But still unorganized. But we're definitely on to the right path. We just now need to make sure we don't have too many things selected. Say around this area. Let's make sure we got our active point, and let's turn this down. Now honestly, this could work. That could work, and we won't do it all at once. We'll take it step by step. So next we will only have this area selected. Now let's get our active point. Got our active point. That's a little bit better. That's curious. What we need to do is to also view this from a distance to see how it looks. Not sure I like the entire thing, because yes, it's a little bit protruded, but the important thing is that one thing we know for sure is that it's not completely flat. It is a little bit protruded, but we don't want it to be too protruded, even if we have to manually adjust this ourselves. So it's kind of like that. And possibly rotate it a little bit and move it out. Probably move it out a bit more and rotate it a bit more. That is a little bit better. Not perfect, but it's a little bit better. So we could work with that. Yeah, that's definitely workable. What we can then do is, of course, make sure you save your documents, extrude, and delete faces. Now if we subdivide this, probably by 3, tab in, press A to select all, Shift N to correct the normals, Control B to bezel, only bezeling by a segment of 1. But I wonder, should we possibly add a mirror modifier before anything else? Control A, reset the locations. Still doesn't like that, so we probably need to set the mirror location to our cube. That's a lot better. But the problem is we already extruded, so we need to sort of undo the extrusion. So let's go back a few rounds. That's better. So just after we save, mirror modifier, let's mirror this to our cube. That's perfect. Let's save this again. Save it step by step so you don't lose a thing. And then we might have to readjust it a little bit like that. Might have to. But then again, if we, just an idea, if we apply this, how does it look? But I don't like that diamond cut right there. That diamond cut it doesn't fit with the rest of the car. So clearly we need to turn off the proportional editing and move this along the right hand side. Let's give that a little bit of space. That's not so bad. Let's save that once again and let's apply our mirror modifier. Then we can fill. We can then fill from there on out. We can fill these remaining faces. That's a little bit better. Come to think of it, we might have to carry this down a little bit. Not too much, probably a little bit more. And then let's save this again. With everything selected, then we can extrude. Then we can delete the faces. That's a lot better. It's looking a lot more like an Audi vehicle. Then we can add our subdivision. We can then level it up. Select everything, Control B, one segment as per usual. That does look pretty good, but probably subdivide by 4 would look even better. But it does slow down our viewport quite a bit. I'm actually curious how this would look just with it like that. Obviously the higher subdivision, but something like that. And I wonder if we could then add a manual bezel. It doesn't work too well. Definitely doesn't work too well. Honestly, that is the one remainder problem. So let's get in real close up. We want to bezel this again, but be even more precise, even more careful, kind of like that. And that does look good. But like I said, the only problem is completely slows up our viewport. Yeah, you can see that lag. It's quite annoying. But there are solutions to reducing this mess. I wonder if we can get rid of some of these vertices. Well, some of them. Like, I wonder if we can just dissolve some of these, and we might need to do one side at a time. If we do that side, that looks okay. Then if we do this side, that looks okay. Okay, so part of the trick is to do these one at a time, which could take us some time. So keep that in mind as you work, that this is a time-consuming process. There might be easier ways to do it, but I'm experimenting with the knowledge that I know and trying some new stuff to see if it works. And pretty much now we're just simplifying it. Just simplifying it as much as possible and removing these unnecessary vertices. Keep an eye on the object, of course, to make sure that it's not developing any weird patterns. We'll dissolve edge once again, and with a bunch of these we'll just delete these. Probably not all of it, but certainly the parts that are unnecessary. And as for these areas, we'll simply just move this back. That's a lot better. Now, because we no longer have the mirror modifier, we sort of have to manually do a lot of these. Yep, including these areas. So we'll dissolve those vertices also. Yeah, so it's like I said, without the mirror modifier, viewport is a lot more responsive. But without that mirror modifier, we have to do each side manually. But it pretty much is the same thing on either side. And we'll delete these. We'll delete these also. We'll dissolve these vertices and we'll carry these one across like there, so we can then dissolve some more. So we can then delete these and dissolve these ones, carry those across, delete those ones, carry this into the design, and carry those towards the rear using the y-axis. But like I said, it's one thing that I don't like, and it's still happening, is this viewport is lagging like crazy. We'll extend this part out and we'll move this towards the rear a little bit. I'll actually might need to do this with the entire thing. Well, not the entire thing, but probably most of it. Same thing here. Move this back a little bit. And as for these ones, we'll dissolve these vertices also. We'll delete these ones. Anything that will help to speed up our viewport. But truth to be told, that's actually not looking too bad. It's not the most responsive, but could be a lot worse actually. But we got radiators going on behind there. We got headlights. Yeah, you know, the grill is not looking too bad. It's definitely not looking perfect. I'd definitely love to do some more work on this, but that is probably for a more advanced course. Something to note on this side, might need to carry this towards the rear also. And let's make sure we save this. Something else that's a little bit prevalent on this design is that around it there's like a black seal. So we'll duplicate this and we'll separate. And we will press Ctrl J to merge, and we will tab in. And we will merge at center. This might actually be a little bit tricky because this area needs to be extruded towards the rear. Looking at this from the inside, okay, the only part that we'll extrude this area, extrude this towards the rear. And with these two, we want to merge that and actually move that towards the rear a little bit more. That's a little bit better. How about this area? Can we carry this across like that? Could do. Wonder if we should merge this. Probably not. Okay, let's separate these almost temporarily. Well, not a separation actually. More like an over-exaggeration. Okay, good. So we can continue with this and merge at last. Move this up, carry this in. That's pretty good. Save this, tab in, press A to select all, E to extrude, but not by a lot, and S, X, and let's carry this forward a little bit. Let's extrude forward a little bit, and let's extrude again and scale within. But we want to scale on median point, kind of like that. Extrude again, but extrude inwards. Perfect. And scale it inwards a little bit. Let's add some vertices around this area. Although I must be honest, it was never that sharp. May need to carry this to the center a little bit more. And with these ones, we're just going to carry this down a little bit more. That's a little bit better. Tab in, Shift N to set those normals, and let's shade smooth. Might need to add a vertex around this area. That's pretty good. So that's not perfect, but it's also really, really damn good. So we'll end it here for today, but that's some really good work. And we will pick up where we left off in our next episodes. So thank you for watching. If you know of a better way to accomplish this, share it with the community. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Looking good so far, looking really, really good. Leave a like, leave a comment, and I will see you in our next video.